Have you ever heard the story of giant human skeletons, 8, 10, even 12 feet tall, being dug up across America? It's a tale that sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, but in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it was front-page news. Newspapers from West Virginia to Wisconsin were buzzing with reports of enormous remains found in ancient burial mounds, caves, and farm fields. These weren't just a few isolated incidents. We're talking about dozens of accounts. Take, for example, a story from May 1912 near Lake Delavan, Wisconsin. Archaeologists from Beloit College were said to have uncovered 18 skeletons of extraordinary size. The reports were often filled with sensational details that captured the public's imagination. Skulls so massive they couldn't be human, double rows of teeth, and femurs that dwarfed those of an average person. These articles, published in local papers and popular magazines, painted a picture of a lost race of giants who once roamed the continent. The descriptions were vivid, the locations were specific, and to many people at the time, the evidence seemed undeniable. It's an incredible story, but is it true? To find out, we have to look beyond the headlines and into the world of science. So, with all these newspaper reports, where did all the giants go? Well, this is where the scientific community steps in. From the very beginning, professional archaeologists and anthropologists were highly skeptical of these claims. The mainstream scientific interpretation is that these giant skeleton reports were a mix of a few things: honest misidentification, wild exaggeration, and in some cases, outright hoaxes. Think about it. Most of these discoveries were made by farmers, local antiquarians, or amateur enthusiasts, not trained professionals. It's easy to see how someone could unearth the large, thick femur of an extinct megafauna, like a giant sloth or a mammoth, and mistake it for a human bone. Without the proper training in comparative anatomy, an unusual find can quickly become a giant. A key figure in this whole debate was Alois Hrdlicka, a prominent anthropologist and curator at the Smithsonian Institution. He spent years investigating these claims, and he was not impressed. Hrdlicka argued that many of these reports were fueled by what he called the will to believe. People wanted to find something extraordinary, a remnant of a lost mythical age. He concluded that in nearly every case he examined, the skeletons were either of normal-sized humans whose bones were jumbled or mismeasured, or they weren't human at all. He believed the lack of peer-reviewed evidence and the sensationalist nature of the reports were huge red flags. For the scientific establishment, the case of the American giants was less about a lost race and more about a lesson in critical thinking and the importance of expert analysis. Now, this is where the story takes a dark and conspiratorial turn. If you've spent any time exploring this topic online, you've almost certainly come across the explosive claim that the Smithsonian Institution admitted to destroying thousands of giant human skeletons in the early 1900s to cover up the truth and protect the mainstream narrative of human history. This is the heart of the modern giant myth, the idea that a powerful institution actively suppressed evidence of America's giant past. This claim often circulates with a dramatic headline, sometimes even mentioning a supposed Supreme Court case that forced the Smithsonian to reveal its secrets. It sounds like a blockbuster movie plot, right? The powerful gatekeepers of history hiding a world-changing discovery. But here's the reality. This claim has been thoroughly and repeatedly debunked. Fact-checking organizations like PolitiFact have investigated this and rated the claim pants on fire, their lowest rating for truthfulness. They found zero evidence of any such admission or court ruling. The Smithsonian itself has consistently denied these accusations, stating flatly that they have never admitted to destroying giant skeletons because, well, it never happened. So, where did this bombshell story even come from? It wasn't from a leaked document or a whistleblower's testimony. Researchers traced the origin of this specific claim back to a satirical website called World News Daily Report. This site is known for publishing fictional, often humorous articles disguised as news. In 2014, they posted a story about the Smithsonian and the giant skeletons, and it went viral. People shared it as fact, and it spread like wildfire across social media and conspiracy forums. Despite being completely fabricated, the story tapped into a pre-existing suspicion and took on a life of its own. In short, the evidence for the Smithsonian cover-up isn't a smoking gun. It's a piece of internet satire that people mistook for reality. So if the skeletons weren't real, and the cover-up was a hoax, why does this myth refuse to die? Why are so many people still fascinated by the idea of ancient giants in America? The answer lies deep within human psychology and our love for a good story. For one, our fascination with giants is nothing new. They are everywhere in our myths, legends, and folklore, from the titans of Greek mythology to Goliath in the Bible and the giants of Norse sagas. The idea of a bigger, stronger, more powerful race of beings that came before us is a powerful and enduring archetype. It taps into our sense of wonder and our curiosity about the unknown mysteries of the past. The possibility that these myths might have a basis in reality is incredibly appealing. Secondly, the nature of the original evidence makes it perfect for modern myth-making. The reports came from old, hard-to-verify newspaper clippings and local accounts written by non-specialists. They are filled with sensational details, but lack rigorous scientific documentation, photos, or preserved specimens. This makes them easy for fringe websites and YouTube channels to amplify without having to meet a high standard of proof. They can present these old articles as lost evidence that the mainstream is ignoring. This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle: the role of institutions like the Smithsonian. In the conspiracy narrative, the Smithsonian's refusal to validate these giant claims isn't seen as a commitment to scientific standards. Instead, it's twisted into proof that they are gatekeepers, or censors, who are actively suppressing the truth. Alois Hrdlicka, the scientist who debunked many of the claims, is often painted as the villain of the story, the man who made the giants disappear. This transforms a scientific disagreement into a dramatic conflict between brave truth seekers and a shadowy establishment, which is a much more compelling story than one about misidentified mammoth bones. The myth persists, not because of evidence, but because it tells a story we want to believe. So, let's wrap this all up. What can we say for sure? The reports of giant skeletons being discovered in 19th and early 20th century America are real, in the sense that these newspaper articles and local accounts genuinely exist. They are historical documents that reflect a period of exciting and sometimes undisciplined archaeological discovery. However, the weight of credible scientific evidence overwhelmingly suggests that these reports were not documenting a genuine race of human giants. The more likely explanations are a combination of misinterpretation of animal or jumbled human bones, exaggeration for the sake of a good story, and a few outright hoaxes. Professional archaeologists who examined the claims at the time consistently found them to be unsubstantiated. As for the most popular part of the modern myth, the claim that the Smithsonian Institution admitted to destroying thousands of these skeletons in a massive cover-up, this has been proven to be false. It originated from a satirical website and has been debunked by fact-checkers and the Smithsonian itself. There is simply no credible documentation to support this conspiracy theory. While the idea of a lost race of giants is incredibly captivating, the story of the American giants is ultimately a fascinating case study in how folklore sensationalism and a distrust of authority can combine to create a persistent modern myth. It reminds us of the importance of critical thinking and checking our sources, especially when a story seems too good or too conspiratorial to be true. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of America's most enduring mysteries. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more historical myths and legends with me, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if there are any other mysteries you'd like me to investigate. Until next time, stay curious.